Denied for Katie Beckett? Don't panic. Whether it's a technical denial or a level of care denial, I've got you covered. I'll explain what it means, what steps you need to take, and how the appeal process really works.
Raising neurodivergent kids is messy, beautiful, and a lot. I'm Mary Ellen Yates, and this is Growing Together, Neurodiversity at Home. Let's figure it out together.
Okay, let's get started. So earlier this year, I applied for the Katie Beckett deeming waiver for Medicaid for my two sons. I received a technical denial and a level of care denial. I'll take you through what each of those processes looked like. I live in the state of Georgia. Every state has a different procedures for Medicaid and for Katie Beckett, so definitely check out what you need to do in your state. And also, I'm not a lawyer and I am not talking as a medical professional. I'm only speaking to my experience with being a parent and the application process that I went through for my two sons. So with that being said, let's start with the technical denial because it was the easiest denial to work with. So basically, it said that my son was denied and there was a checkbox indicating that it was a technical denial. In the comments of the letter, the medical reviewer puts why they were issuing the technical denial and what I needed to do if I wanted them to relook at the application. They wanted therapy notes from January all the way to present. And then they said to explain if there were any inconsistencies with going to therapies. So that's what I did. I contacted the providers that had the therapy notes and asked for that time frame. And within days, they all sent me the signed and dated therapy notes. And I also included a cover letter that listed every single date that we could have had an appointment, but we didn't for whatever reason. I keep that information in my Google Calendar. And I sent the new packet to the address that's listed right on the technical denial form on May 29th. And I received the approval letter on June 17th. Let's talk about the level of care denial, which is an actual denial. It's basically saying that we do not feel like your child qualifies. And then they list the reasons. One of the reasons what they list is a psychological eval. Another reason was that therapies were not in place for 5 days a week. I wasn't sure about the first point, but I knew the second point of not having therapies 5 days a week was inaccurate. The letter says that you have 30 days from the postmark date to request a hearing or the decision is final. So the first thing I did was I contacted two lawyers. I needed to know whether it was worth fighting or really my son did not qualify and then to just accept it and move on and see what other options were out there. So the first lawyer I contacted was an advocacy lawyer that I had met previously at an autism walk. And so I contacted her and then I sent her the packet that I had submitted to Katie Beckett, and within 2 days we had an online video chat where we discussed my son, and she felt with what was provided in the packet that we should qualify. And so she said it would be worth pursuing. So then she referred me to a lawyer that actually does the hearing work because she deals with working on applications themselves. But I never heard back from the lawyer for the hearings. But meantime, I had also called another office. And the reason I called two different lawyers was because I figured lawyers are busy and I only had 30 days. And so I wanted to make sure that I could find someone that could help me in that time frame. So on the denial letter, towards the back, one of the last pages, it talks about your right to a hearing. And then it also suggests a few places that you can contact for a minimal fee or no fee. And so I contacted the Georgia Advocacy Office. I told the person that answered the phone my situation. They sent me an email to give me their email, and then I sent the packet that I had submitted to Katie Beckett so that they could review it. I didn't hear anything from either lawyer for a little while. So then I tried to reach out to both of them. I never heard back from first lawyer referral, but when I reached back out to the advocacy office, they did have someone respond, and then they assigned me to a lawyer that was very helpful. So she went over the application. We talked on the phone for a while, and she also agreed, based on what I submitted, that she thought that my son qualified as well. And so her recommendation was that I file for a hearing so I could get that ball in motion. Once I did that, she gave me a game plan of things I needed to do. She said that she couldn't take me on as a full client, but she could help walk me through the process. So grateful for her help because she really was amazing. A template mailing out the request for the hearing. And so I requested a fair hearing with the Georgia Department of Community and Health. On that back page that's about your rights to a hearing, they have an address right there, and you mail the request to that address. I mailed the request on May 30th. On June 13th, it was filed in a court, and the hearing was set for July 24th. So I didn't have a lot of time. So I recontacted that lawyer and told her when the hearing date was. And then she suggested two things. The first thing was file with the clerk a continuance to give me more time. The next thing was she had me fill out a release of information so that she could contact the psychologist that did the testing to clarify on the results so that we could bring it up at the hearing. For a lot of the results that automatically qualify a kid for approval, my son was 1 point away from the qualifying score. I was asking the provider what the margin of error is for these tests since he was so close to that cutoff. On July 18th, I cold call from state attorney. The state attorney was very kind and they asked if I had an attorney and I said no, I was representing myself, and so they were able to speak to me. Otherwise, the state attorney would need to speak directly to my lawyer. And then also on the call was the medical reviewer. So the medical reviewer went over why she had denied my son. And one of the things that she had said was that he wasn't getting therapy for a week, and that's one of the requirements. And I said, yes, he is. He's totally getting it. And so she felt like it didn't really reflect that in the therapy notes that we sent. Time of the application, we had just started one of our therapies, and so it was very intermittent because we had just started and there had been some sicknesses and whatever. So she said, okay, and send from February, March, and April instead so I can see the picture of your kid getting therapy and if it was consistent. And she said to also enclose a letter if there were any therapies missed, why they were missed, like I had already done with my other son. And then she also said that the order of medical necessity was a little ambiguous and she wanted another copy from the physician. So I said, okay, that's how the conversation ended. Lawyer said that she was going to write a mutual continuance because they gave me time to get them the paperwork and for the medical reviewer to go over it. This was on a Friday. By day night, I had sent in all this stuff and I was able to email it this time. Since you get approved for the court date, you send all the documentation via email instead of having mail. By Wednesday, 2 days later, the lawyer acknowledged acceptance of the documentation and forwarded it on to the medical reviewer. And so I was waiting for a decision on July 28th. The lawyer had put in motion for continuance. And then I've enclosed the cover letter that I used for my two denials. They pretty much looked the same for my technical denial and my level of care denial, because for both of them, they requested more therapy records for a longer period of time. So I have my information up here. I have the subject and I listed what they were requesting. And so I have these therapy notes for these dates and the medical order necessity form per your request. So I have the updated medical order of necessity that they requested. I have occupational therapy and speech therapy combined. So I just noted it by February, March, and April. That's the order that we had it. And then for the other therapies, we had is just all of their therapy notes, and I put that there. So just listed how you're giving it to them. For my technical denial, I had to mail all of these documents, but with my level of care denial, I had to email all these documents because I had already requested the fair hearing. And so at that point, once that's approved, you're sending documents via email back and forth to the lawyers or whoever I need to send the information to. So this was all emailed. And so I have, per our conversation, this is what you requested. This is the information. This is why. If there were any dates that we did not have therapies, I listed why. And some of those reasons were the therapist canceled. It was a holiday. The company closed for training. We had a spring break in there. And then I hope this shows that my son qualifies. And if you have any questions, please call or email me and I sign it. Days later, I got an electronic notification from Georgia Access, and on there it showed that both of my sons were now approved for the Katie Beckett. Then I received that Medicaid card about a week later. It really didn't take that much time. So the turnaround was pretty quick once I sent the appeals for the technical denial and the level of care denial. A couple of weeks later, the lawyer finished up the paperwork and asked for the whole case to be dismissed and to come to an agreement. Yay! So I never had to actually go to the hearing, and the lawyer that I'd been working with said that was often the case. So I was very relieved for that because I really did not want to have to go to court, but I was prepared to, especially since I felt like my son qualified. So have you gone denial process, or have you recently received a denial and have been debating whether to appeal it? I hope this video helps you, and I'd love to hear your comments and your experience. Please like and subscribe below. Bye.